Hi, I'm Antonia and welcome to Embroidery Playground. Today we're going to be making this easy to make little zipper pouch. It'll hold your ID or your business cards, as well as have a little pocket to store some extra cards, your cash, your change, or your additional business cards inside. Super easy to make. Stick around to see how. So these are the materials that you're going to need. I'll go over them again. The 5x7 with tearaway, 2 pieces of lining at 5 by 6 inches, 2 pieces of outer material at 5 by 6 inches, a piece of clear vinyl measuring 4 by 4 inches, a swivel snap hook, a zipper at least 7 inches long, and a piece of ribbon measuring about 3 inches, or we can use the end of our zipper tape. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing I'm going to do, I've got my file loaded to my machine already. And again, I am using the Unlined file. So I'm going to go ahead and step over to the machine and stitch the first step, which is the placement lines. It will stitch directly onto the stabilizer. All right, so we've got our placement lines stitched out. Okay, so we've got our placement lines stitched out. And it looks like this. This is the main, where the main bag will be. And this is your zipper placement. So what we're going to do first is go ahead and place our zipper down. And I'm going to leave a little extra tail off to the right, more than what I normally do. Normally I would center it like that. But today I'm going to move it just a little farther to the right. So we've got some extra zipper tape hanging over here. So what I'm doing now is making sure that my zipper teeth are right inside this top box here. There's the main portion and then a little skinny part up here. So you want to make sure your zipper is lined up right inside the middle of that box. And I'm going to go ahead and tape it in place. That way it does not shift. So I've got my zipper taped down, and I'm going to go ahead and go to the machine and stitch the next step, which will be the tack down for the zipper. Alright, so we've got our zipper tacked down now. Now the next thing that we're going to do is the optional part. So let me explain something first. The reason I do this is because for these little pouches, they are quite tight to turn with them being so small. When you make them out of vinyl, they do get kind of tight. But people like to still have a lining inside. So if the exposed seam does not bother you, it doesn't bother me, but if the exposed seam does not bother you, this method will be what you will want to do. I do offer this file in a lined and an unlined version. It comes together in the file, so you can take your pick. Now with the lined, you know, the lined leaves an opening at the bottom for you to turn it through the little opening instead of through the zipper. And so with that one, all of the seams inside will be hidden. So if you choose to do the lined, by all means, go right ahead, and I will have a video with those instructions as well. But today we're doing the unlined. We are still putting a lining in it, but it will have exposed seams, and it will be turned out through the zipper instead of through a little opening on the bottom that you will later have to hand close. So we're going to go ahead and put our lining, our first piece of lining, on the back side of the hoop, and it will be placed right side down. Now, all of these lining steps are completely optional. If you decide to skip the lining altogether, that's totally fine. You can just skip the lining and not put it in, and that's okay. So we're going to go ahead and put our lining down with the right side down against the back of our hoop with the raw edge, put that tape back down, with the raw edge lined up with the bottom of the zipper. You can see the zipper through your stabilizer, so just below that stitch line. So just like that. And I'm going to go ahead and tape it in place. I'm going to tape it on the sides just so my tape doesn't get stitched over. And one more little tip for you. When you've got your lining flipped up like this and you go to put it back on the machine, a lot of times this will flip down and get caught on itself. So what I do is clip it right to the stabilizer. That way it stays up out of the way and I don't have to worry about it so much. So just like that. Now we're going to flip it back over. And I do leave my, excuse me, I do leave my tape, my zipper taped down until closer to the end. That way it doesn't get caught on anything. Okay, so I've got my lining on the back with the right side against the hoop. And I'm going to go ahead and stitch the next step, which is a straight line here that secures the lining in place. All right, so we've got our lining tacked down. You can see on the back here, it did stitch all the way across there. So we're going to leave it just like this, with it secured up out of the way, just like that. And we'll flip back to the front. And now you're going to want to put your front material in place. So I'm just going to place my piece of vinyl, and I'm just using a thin, a really thin, soft vinyl. I had actually gotten it off of Amazon in a bundle pack from just some random place to try out to see what it was like. And it is almost more like a fabric than a vinyl at all, but it does have a vinyl feel to the front of it. Anyway, that's where this one came from. We'll just leave it at that. But anyhow, okay, so we're going to put our piece of vinyl down at the bottom of the zipper. I put the edge right up to the bottom of the zipper, and then I'm going to go ahead and tape it in place. Just like that. And we're going to go ahead and stitch the tack down for this piece, and it will stitch the entire body around this vinyl. Alright, so you can see here, I went ahead and took the tape off the top of my vinyl, and I've got a stitch line here that tacked it down. So the back is still with the lining flipped up, and the front just like this. So the next step, and I'm going to go ahead and take this tape and move it up to the top of this vinyl so it doesn't get hung. Okay, so the next step, we will be stitching the placement line for our pocket. It's going to stitch our placement around 3 sides, just like that, for our clear vinyl. Alright, so we've got our placement line for our clear pocket in place. So we're going to place our vinyl, our clear vinyl, right on top of those placement lines. And I line, the open edge will be over here. So I line up my raw edge of my vinyl with those 2 marks at the end. That way it comes right to the end of the stitching. I'm going to go ahead and secure this in place so it does not shift. And I'm going to stitch the tack down all the way around those 3 sides. Alright, so we've got our clear vinyl tacked down all the way around. Now what we're going to do is trim away the excess from the outside of the stitching. We're only going to be trimming the clear pocket. So I just use my little curved embroidery scissors and just trim right along that stitch line. It kind of helps me to fold my vinyl back a little bit, just to kind of give me a little mark to trim along. So I fold it back on itself, and then that way it just kind of stands up, and I can just trim it right across there. So it's trimmed. You can kind of see where the clear vinyl is here, and I've got it cut all the way up to the stitching, so you just want to be careful. Don't clip your stitching, but get as close as possible. Okay, now the next step, I'm going to go around and go back over to the machine, and it will stitch a zigzag stitch around this pocket. That way it kind of gives it a little added touch to it, a little more finish than having just a raw edge there. So I'm going to go stitch that zigzag step now. Alright, so you can see we've got our zigzag stitch all the way around that pocket now. So the next step, we're going to put our lining back down in place on the back side of the hoop. So we're just going to flip it over to the back and flip our lining down so you can see the right side. I am taping it back down. That way it doesn't shift on me when I move it back over to the machine. So I'm going to go back to the machine, and it's going to stitch around this part again, and that will hold the lining in place. Okay, so we've got our lining tacked down on the back side of the hoop. It's stitched all the way around just like this. And our next step will be our placement lines for our loop, our ribbon loop that will go right here. So it's going to stitch a little line right there, and then I'm going to place my zipper tape. Then I'm going to go ahead and cut off the excess here. This is what I'm going to use for my ribbon loop. Instead of a piece of ribbon, that's what I used on this one as well. See how that's a zipper? Okay, so it's a little bit hard to see, but I do have my placement line for my ribbon or my zipper tape stitched right here. So what I'm going to do is take the piece of zipper tape that I cut off the excess and just hook my clip right onto that zipper tape. And I'll tape that in place over those placement lines. Just like that. And I like to put a little bit of tape on the outside as well, so it does not shift at all. So it's going to stitch right there along that stitch line. I'm going to go ahead and take it back to the machine and stitch the tack down for that placement. Alright, so now we've got our clip stitched in place. So it's not going anywhere. But I'm going to go ahead and leave this tape there just for a little added security. And we're getting ready to put our backing on now. So we're going to open the zipper to a little past the midway point. And I'm also going to be placing a piece of tape on my zipper. That way it does not come open at all. We want to make sure that it stays closed. So when the presser foot comes around, it doesn't shift and open up at all, so there's no gaps. So we're just going to make sure that that's taped closed outside of the stitch line. So then I'm going to place my backing material. This will be the back of your bag. It will go right on top. And I'll leave it hanging over a little extra. It's going to stitch right here across the very top of the zipper. But I'll give it a little extra room at the top and a little bit of extra room at the bottom. So not quite way down here where this one is, but I put it up farther. So it goes all the way up here over the top of your zipper. And I will tape that in place. And now we're also, since I chose to put a lining in this, we're going to go ahead and place our lining fabric right side up, right on top of that backing material. So they'll be right side, or excuse me, they will be wrong sides together. You will see the pretty side of this, but the right side for the outer fabric should be together. And then I'm going to go ahead and secure this piece in place as well. The fabrics do want to shift when you make bags. When they're trying to get around the zipper and around the clip and everything, when that presser foot comes around those spots, it does make your fabric want to bunch up. See how it's kind of moving on me? So it does that when your presser foot goes around as well. So you just want to make sure that those are secured in place. So when it stitches it down, it's actually going to stay right where you want it to be. So I'm going to go ahead and take this back to the machine and stitch that final tack down. And it will stitch all the way around. So you want to make sure that you've remembered to put your zipper on the inside and your clip is secured in place on the inside as well. So I'm going to go back to the machine and stitch that tack down now. Alright, so we've got our final tack down stitched all the way around the bag. So everything is sealed in nice and tight. I'm going to go ahead and remove all of this tape. And I'm also going to go ahead and clean away the stabilizer from my zipper path on the back side of the hoop. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and remove this from the hoop. And remove any excess stabilizer. So we've got our completed bag now. And it's still right side out. Or it's still inside out. So next we're going to trim away all the excess and clean up any tails or anything like that that you might not want showing on the inside of your bag. And I'm going to go ahead and trim away all the excess material from the outside of the bag. For all of my designs, when it comes to making bags, I always make sure that that final stitch is a nice secure stitch. So whenever you're turning your bag out, you can rest assured knowing that it's not going to come undone. So whenever you get ready to trim the excess from your bag, I can safely trim about 1/8 of an inch away from the seam. Is about how close I get. So I'll leave just about 1/8 of an inch seam down there. And I don't have any problems with it, you know, coming undone or anything like that. So we've got it all trimmed up now. And all our excess stabilizers cleaned off. So I'm going to reach inside where we've opened the zipper part way. I'm going to reach inside and open it the rest of the way up. And then start turning my bag right side out. Now, depending on which vinyl you use, it may be a little bit thicker. You just have to work with it. If you warm it up a little, it will help the vinyl to turn as well. And remember, we had this clip taped down, so I do still have a piece of tape on the inside. I'll pull that off. Now I'm just working on getting my corners pushed out nicely. This thin vinyl that I used is really quite nice. It's really soft. And I'm going to take a pair of closed scissors and just kind of poke my corners just a little bit. Not too hard, because you don't want to bust through your vinyl. And then just zip it closed. And there we have our little bag. And you can stick your card right there in the pocket. for your ID, a business card. If you want to use this as maybe a business card holder, that would fit perfectly in there as well. That'd be really cute. So I could put my business cards right there on the front and then have some extras inside. And then I've got myself a little business card holder. That's a great idea. I actually have another one that I made with a friend's vinyl that I've already got in use. I've already attached my keys to it, and I've got my ID in it and my most used cards right inside there, and it is already coming in handy. So this is definitely a handy little bag. So wasn't that easy? Super simple to make. These cute little ID pouches are very easy. Quick stitching, no trouble at all. This one we made lined by using the Unlined file. And like I'd said before, you can easily skip that lining and, just have a completely unlined bag. So you don't have to worry about putting the lining in it at all if you just want to have an open bag. But I like having that extra lining inside. It just gives an extra little added touch to it without, the trouble of turning it out through a little opening on the bottom. But I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. I would really like to build up my subscribers on this channel. So I hope that you will come back for more videos and hit that subscribe button and maybe even the bell next to the subscribe button so you can be notified every time I upload a new video. If you stitch this bag or any other embroidery playground creation, be sure to jump over to our Facebook fan group and share pictures of your stitch outs. We would love to see them. I hope you all have a great day. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.